supplement.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a massive case, billions of dollars,
Yeah.
10 billion. I mean, that's just an unimaginable amount
Yeah,
of
probably
money.
total at least 12 between the couple of settlements.
And for these filtration systems, I'm assuming they're going to be expensive to make for them to
Millions,
create.
multi-millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a whole new system. It's not the systems that have been used for other chemicals in the past aren't working for these.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that's kind of why they waited so long, and they kind of need the slap on the wrist now to get moving on it. But at the same time, I think they would probably prefer to pay a few million to recreate it than 12 billion.
Yeah.
Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
Dangerous drug and product cases.
Welcome back. Another episode of Prioritizing Profits, Dangerous Drug and Product Cases. Another Wednesday, another show. How you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good. We're getting a little bit of a late start, and I feel a little bit guilty about that because somebody, maybe me, forgot to charge the cameras. So we had to get those charging, but it gave us an opportunity to go out and have dinner together and catch up. Because really, we just kind of hop on these, and I find out what's been happening with you for the past week, kind of on here. So it's kind of nice. But we are getting a little bit late start, so hopefully we don't look too tired, and we'll stay awake and rally through this.
I think it worked out. I got myself a Celsius, changed it up from the usual sugar-free Red Bull. Celsius actually, they advertise it helps you lose fat.
Really? I haven't even heard of Celsius.
Yes, it's 0 calories, 0 sugar, or 0 calories. Around there, 10 calories possibly.
10-0.
Yeah, but it's flavored, so it's a lot better, in my opinion, flavor-wise than sugar-free Red Bull. But apparently, I didn't know this, is that when a lot of these drinks say that they're fat-burning, what it actually does is it makes you sweat. It gets your sweat glands going, and so, I mean, I guess technically you're losing weight. But it's more water weight that you're losing.
So I'm not sure how it makes you sweat, but I think they're usually just packed full of caffeine. I'd be curious how much caffeine is in there. But I mean, that would certainly potentially raise your body temperature, cause some sweating, and your metabolism, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I mean, my metabolism gets a little tired, so I get a little kickstart late at night and keep it burning throughout the night.
All right, well, we'll have to see how this works. I'll give you my opinion towards the end.
Yeah, but one thing that you did mention during dinner is that you're planning on starting not CrossFit, powerlifting.
Yes. So I work out all the time, have a little bit of a gym set up in my house, which actually I started, I don't even know if you know this, but I kind of started creating this gym when I was pregnant with you because I was like, all right, I'm having a kid, not going to get fat, not going to be able to get to the gym as regularly. So I kind of started setting up my own. And so I have always done some weights and some cardio. Cardio is kind of out of favor these days. But I do the weights, and honestly, I think, and in the past, I've always done it more about an appearance perspective. I didn't want to be overweight. I wanted to be, have my muscles look firm and all of that. But at this point, I really am interested in gaining some strength, building some muscle, and partly just because I do have osteoporosis. One of the things that you can do to help that is weight bearing exercises. Like I said, I do some. But I think I'd like to work on a little heavier weights, and then powerlifting sounded kind of cool.
It does have a fun name.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Can you see me being all super buff?
Well, I think most people get into working out for aesthetic. Even though they say they want to be healthy.
I'm honest. I said in the past it was all about aesthetics.
Me too. I mean, that's definitely one of the big benefits of working out consistently. And I was kind of surprised when you said powerlifting because I do have a lot of experience in the gym. I've just wanted to be a personal trainer for a little bit. But powerlifting was always something that I felt was very intimidating.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like deadlifting where it can be very risky if you don't have proper form.
Right.
So I know that you have a personal trainer and they're going to kind of show you how it's done.
Yeah. So so this is all new. I'm starting tomorrow. Will be my first actual session, but I've met the trainer. One of my husband's colleagues, who's a cardiologist here in town, actually she competes at powerlifting, and she's older. She's I'm not sure, early 60s. Mm-hmm. But I mean, she's I don't know what her titles are, but she's done pretty well locally competing. And you wouldn't necessarily know it to look at her. I mean, she doesn't look, like overly muscled up or something,
Yeah.
but she's obviously extremely strong. And so she recommended this place called Tucson Strength, which is kind of cool because it's in the old Chuck E. Cheese building where you and I spent many, many hours. Many hours.
Spot. That was my spot. I loved it.
It was kind of fun walking in there. I was like, do I smell that nasty pizza? Anyway, it was kind of cool. So her name's Jess, and I am going to start tomorrow. I know I'm going to be starting basically just on form and that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited. I think I'm doing it for the right reason this time.
Yeah.
Build some muscle, some health, some strength, all that kind of stuff. So that's my plan.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. Never too late to start, and it gives you a new little hobby as well,
Yeah.
and something to work towards. I think it's interesting that she competes, even at her age, because I know that there is a very wide variety of different weight classes as well as age classes when it comes to lifting and powerlifting and everything around that.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but I'm going to learn. And like I said, I don't know that I'm going to compete, but maybe I will. I mean, who knows?
Maybe you're a natural. It's a hidden talent of yours.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people know what I look like, but I can look pretty scrawny at times. So, we'll see. I mean, I'm going to give it my shot. I'll update you as we go along.
We'll see. Either way, it's healthy. I think it's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
exciting. And you definitely have to give us some updates.
I will. Something to keep me off the streets,
Perfect. Well, we can hop into kind of, the show overall. We usually start with interesting cases in the news. What's been going on this week?
Well, it's definitely some interesting things in the news. One thing which is really, honestly horrifying and disturbing, and it's something that we've talked about before, but it's come up again. And this is a product that was recalled a couple of years ago, and these are these Boppy infant loungers.
Yeah.
And we talked about it in the fact that there had been a number of infant deaths and they had been recalled. And we even talked about the fact that the problem is that these are being sold on the secondary market. And so even though they've been recalled, they're still getting out there, they're being used, and now there have been 2 more deaths.
Wow.
Yeah, and so the CPSC, Consumer Product Safety Commission, is pretty worked up about this and is basically at this point blaming Meta, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, and kind of putting their foot down and saying, this is not okay that these products are being resold on Facebook.
I'm sure there's other sites that are selling it as well. eBay or OfferUp.
Well, there may be, but what they're saying is that, because they're doing these searches and they've indicated that they've requested the removal of listings thousands of times to no avail.
Wow.
Yeah, and it says, let's see, in the past year, CPSC has formally requested on average about 1,000 times a month that Meta take down listings for the Boppy newborn lounger from Facebook Marketplace. So despite these requests, the sales are still happening. And so basically what they're saying is like, look, this platform has the ability to, however they do these searches or, that these things should get tagged. And as soon as somebody places something like this on the market for sale, that they should be aware of it and they should yank it. And that it's not okay that 2 more babies have died.
Yeah.
Not okay. And so, it's interesting. They've given him I say him, I guess Meta, not just Mark Zuckerberg personally. I don't think they personally told him this, but I think June 30th deadline to respond with the steps that it intends to take to prevent the illegal sales of recalled products. So they're saying, not okay. You've got till June 30th. Tell us exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it to make sure that this stops happening. Because, babies can't keep dying. This is a product. The company that manufactured it recalled it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We know it's a problem. So, pretty crazy, really, like I said, horrific that this is still happening.
And it makes sense that they're going after the marketplaces at this point because the company has already recalled it. And
Yeah, there's nothing else they can do.
Yeah.
They'll give you their money back. They're not selling them. What else can they do?
Yeah, and one of the things that you mentioned is that you have to register your device, whatever it may be, the product, and then that's kind of how they know to reach out to you and let you know that it was recalled. But because it's going through these secondary websites, maybe once, maybe twice, who knows?
Yeah.
It's just nearly impossible for the company to keep track. And I think it would be something relatively easy for these marketplaces to keep an eye out for. When you're
Doesn't it seem like that?
you're putting the product name in the advertisement, advertisement. I'm sure there's
Right.
some that just say like, baby.
Baby lounger or something. But I
Yeah.
mean, even so, I mean, maybe baby products need to be taken a closer look at. I'm not,
Yeah.
I mean, they've got tons of people on staff, I'm sure, who know, all the best ways to do this because they certainly know how to get people addicted. So I would think they would know how to like, stop certain products from being resold.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a super high bar.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely kind of right with baby products, especially because it's so common, like you said, to
Resell.
resell because
yeah.
they grow out of things so quickly.
Yeah, limited time that you're going to use them, and then they're just too big to fit on these bopper. I had one for you. Well, not that exact brand, but
Thank
something
God.
similar. Here you are, and you certainly wouldn't fit in it now.
I admit it, but it is terrible to hear that two more babies have lost their lives, and it's good that they're doing something about it. So if they don't by June 30th, what happens? Do they get sued or?
Well, they're not going to get sued because this is the Consumer Product Safety Commission. So I don't know if they will be assessing fines. I'm not sure exactly what steps they could take, but I do think that, for example, if somebody does have a child that is injured or killed, this certainly opens up Meta to a lawsuit. Again, like we said, I mean, the company that produced these things has done what they can at this point, and these resales are happening through this platform that, as we're saying, they should be able to stop this. They should be able to stop it. So I think that really could put some serious liability on Meta for injuries and deaths.
It makes sense. And I mean, if they do go to fines, it's got to be some insane numbers for them to feel it at all.
It's got to be something that they're going to feel. And
Yeah.
so with Meta, those are some pretty big numbers, but, we'll see. I mean, I'm going to keep following this because it's, like I said, it really upsetting that this keeps happening. And we've been talking about this a few times, and here it is again this week. So it's a repeat topic.
Well, I'm glad it's not being brushed under the rug at the very
No,
least.
absolutely not. Definitely not.
If they're keeping an eye out and they're trying to make some proactive changes to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
So what else?
All right. What else? Well, another very sad case, but it was something that I thought was certainly worth bringing up, and I suspect that you're going to have some input into this topic as well, because it's a subject somewhat near and dear to your heart. There have been a number of cases over the years involving fraternity hazing deaths, where on college campuses they're providing alcohol and really like encouraging students to drink excessively, not responding appropriately when they pass out or when they're really in distress. And there have been a number of deaths through these incidents. And unfortunately, again, there's another one in the news. Another death in a fraternity from, let's see, it looks like the name was Phat Nguyen. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
We'll throw the name up on the screen.
Who was a junior at MSU, and he was a member of the Phi Alpha Phi fraternity. It was one of these situations where they're initiating new pledges, and they were doing what's called like a blackout. I haven't heard that, but I guess a blackout event where the whole point is to get the pledges as drunk as fast as possible so that they black out. And then the theory is that when they come to, they're reborn as members of the fraternity. I mean,
It's an interesting story behind that, or
is that something that you had heard of, or?
no? I mean,
It sounds like one of those religious things, where you baptize somebody and you dunk them under the water and then they come up and they're reborn or something. But this is not. I mean, obviously not that similar. But.
yeah. Well, for some background as well as I was in a fraternity in college, and when I was in the fraternity, I was BDD, so that was Brotherhood Development Director, which essentially is pledge master. Not only would I be planning Brotherhood events, but whenever we did get new classes of individuals, I would be responsible for them and take full responsibility for anything that happened.
Okay, that sounds scary. I didn't think I knew you were taking full responsibility for everything.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of liability. And
it was a lot of liability.
I'm kind of like brushing the sweat off my brow, like, well, shoo, I didn't know the bullets that we dodged. Although it doesn't sound like there were ever big incidents with your fraternity, certainly while you were there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I think pledging overall kind of gets a bad rap, but at the same time, it gets a bad rap for a good reason, is because people just take it too far. And I mean, they just do some absolutely insanely dumb and obviously risky things.
And illegal.
I remember there's one about some kid losing losing his vision because they were dumping hot sauce in his eye.
Oh my God.
And it's just like it's insane. And so we never did anything like that.
Right.
One of the reasons I do kind of think that there is a reason behind hazing is very similar to the military. Like, trauma does bond people together in a
Right.
very short amount of time. And if you're really trying to build these close connections, something more than just a club that you can see every single, any day, if you want to build those connections in a short amount of time, you really got to put in the work, and you kind of have a unique approach to it. So, hopefully we don't want to traumatize these kids, but at the same time, difficult situation, team building activities, knowing that, this sucks. This sucks a little bit, a lot of workouts, but this sucks. But this guy right next to me, he's going through the same thing. He has the same, he's feeling the same thing in his head and the same thoughts, but both of us are doing it together, which makes it a little bit better. And it shows, you feel like you really want it, and, So we didn't do, one of my big things is we didn't do drinking. We just did not incorporate drinking into the actual hazing. I mean, they're more than welcome to drink at parties and at events and whatnot, but there's never any kind of forced drinking.
Okay, that's very good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's so risky because everyone has their different limits. I mean, there was kids in my fraternity that could throw down like half a bottle of Fleischmann's and be okay. They could survive. There's other kids.
Well, relatively speaking.
Yeah, relatively. There's other
felt
kids.
like crap the next day.
Oh, I'm sure, but they're troopers. Other kids that would take, one swig and they would just be out. They'd be, sloshed. So I think there's a balance there.
Yeah. Well, I did a little bit of reading up on that too, kind of because there are a lot of positives to the whole fraternity, obviously to the whole Greek life, but they were saying that that there's a fine line between kind of this hazing and initiation and bullying, and abuse, and that people you want to work really hard and suffer a little bit, make sacrifices and that sort of thing, and then talking about all the things like having to clean up the fraternity house and things like that aren't going to hurt you. I mean, they're going to be very unpleasant, like cleaning toilets. And I mean, you think about these things like with pledge, or like you said, with the military also, where they have to do like the really, shit things for a while. But that, again, it kind of proves their loyalty, and it makes it, somehow that it's worth it, that they've worked hard to be initiated. It's not like an easy thing. If everybody can be in and, with the snap of their fingers, then what's really the point? So I certainly get that, and that it really does provide for some good bonding and that kind of brotherhood or sisterhood situation. But I mean, once you start in injuring people, forcing them to drink. I mean, and some of these stories involve, somebody be very drunk, they fall down the stairs, and there's always, not always, but a lot of times you hear that the situation is that they delayed, he's fine, and they don't get him to the hospital, they don't get medical care, and that's why then people end up dying. And so, so they have pretty strict rules about that now, and there are, I mean, you can have criminal charges, and I mean, and there have been fraternity members who have done time, and should, and then of course there's the civil liability end of things also, and there can be, a lot of people who are on the hook for that, including, the fraternity itself, various members of the fraternity, presumably a BDD or whatever that is, whoever provides alcohol. A lot of different potential defendants there. Yeah,
and kind of going back to what you mentioned too is, I mean, some of the things that they do, or a lot of fraternities do. And one of my big rules, was partially not drinking, right, during the events, but also nothing degrading. Like, there's no benefit to like making someone feel like they're a piece of shit like that, and that's what I think a lot of fraternities do. It's like the Army, where you, like you said, if you put in the work and you feel like you're really working towards something, it makes it so not only do you value the organization more and your place within it, but also everyone else kind of sees it as well.
And they see how important it is to you, and that you are willing to make some sacrifices and put up with some discomfort. And I mean, kind of along those lines, I don't know if this would be considered degrading or uncomfortable, but I do know that you, before Thanksgiving, on the year that you were being initiated, had a little situation. I don't know if you want to talk about that. It was a shock to me.
Yeah. No, it was, so I rushed my first semester in college, and it's such a good thing to do in the first semester, because you go and you don't know anyone. You're really nervous, a little anxious going to class. It's difficult to kind of just start a conversation and get a good group of friends going early on. And fraternity just gives that to you. If you find a good group group of guys that you vibe with, then you immediately have a collection of guys that you hang out with every single week, several times a week, especially during pledging. And it was near the end. Usually pledging semesters last a full semester. And at the end, there's Hell Week. And Hell Week.
Okay, it was Hell Week when this whole thing went down. Okay.
Yeah, so Hell Week is just a full week where usually the entire class stays in the same house. And I mean, it's a ton of fun, honestly, because you're sleeping like shoulder to shoulder with guys on the floor. And
that doesn't sound fun.
Well, no, but there's, and
bonding. And,
the nights are tough, but like going to class and coming back and knowing you just got like all of your closest friends just hanging out at the house waiting for you. And like there's times in between where you guys can just fuck around and do whatever. But there's one night that you're given to your big, essentially, and he can kind of, haze you. You guys can just hang out, whatever it is. And I don't know why, but my big just thought it would be funny to shave my head.
Funny?
Or actually, it wasn't even him. It was someone else that I was really close friends with one of the actives. And my big gave the okay. And so this guy just was like, one night was pretty sloshed and was like, let's do it. And I was always someone that wanted to kind of prove that I was hard. I wanted it more than everyone else, wanted to be better than everyone else. And that's the only way you can really measure is like what you're willing to go through during that time. And so right away I was like, okay, fine. If that's really what I got to do, let's do it. And so it was me and another kid that got our head shaved. At least he did a clean full shave. The other kid, he did a reverse mohawk. So just straight down the middle. And he eventually had to get, a real haircut to get all that done. And yeah, I mean, it sucked, right? You kind of look like an idiot for a little bit. But even going to class, I would wear a beanie because I didn't want everyone to see how I was skin bald. Like, it didn't look good.
I remember how shocked I was because when you showed up for Thanksgiving and I was like, you pulled off that beanie and your dad and I were both like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it sucked, but at the same time, it kind of felt like a badge of honor. Like when I would go to class and, people were like, oh, like, how was your week or whatever? And I'll just like show a little bit of my scalp and they'd be like, wow. Fuck. Okay, nice. And all the actives too were like, holy shit, wow, like impressive,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's physically you weren't injured, and it sounds like you've had a good attitude about it, and yeah, no, that was a pretty intense memory for me. I wouldn't recommend it. You're not, I like your hair. You look better with hair.
No, I don't think I would ever go back. Even when I got my head shaved and dyed it, I definitely didn't go skin bald because skin bald just doesn't look good. Unless you have to because you're losing your hair. It's pretty hard to rock. But yeah, I mean, overall, kind of for me, it was a good experience, and I've heard a ton of stories, even at ASU, of other fraternities doing, just so dumb things. There was one kid that got thrown into a pool in a dog cage, and
oh my God,
yeah, and he had to like find his way out, and apparently he dropped after that and reported it to the school, and they got in a ton of trouble. But it's just so clearly dumb and risky and scary things.
Oh, was that at ASU or just a story?
That was at ASU.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a kid didn't die, but like he told his parents, and the parents reported it.
Wow.
And he dropped
I mean, thank God he didn't die, but I mean, you could be scarred for life with something like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's like terrifying.
Yeah.
And they're all lucky that, I mean, that's, wow. I haven't heard of anything like that.
Yeah. And even there was things too where like, let's say there's a class of 20 and it'd be like the last day before everyone's initiated, and they would throw 19 quarters into a pool, and whoever couldn't find the quarter was just dropped. They had to do it all, like they would have to re-rush and do it all over again.
Okay, I can't really swim, and I can't open my eyes underwater, so I would have been screwed.
Well, it's just terrifying because you're like, holy shit, my entire semester just went to a waste because I couldn't find a quarter at night in a pool.
That sounds really sad.
Well, I mean, we didn't do that, but I've heard stories, so.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I'm glad nothing like that happened. I probably have never told you this, but the very first time I came to Tucson, I was working at a firm up in Phoenix, and I came down here. I was working as a defense attorney at the time, And the case that I came down to Tucson on was a case against a fraternity at U of A, where there had been a party and people were drinking underage and drinking excessively. And a couple of the members were in a car and got into a terrible accident and killed a woman.
Wow.
Yeah. And so at that point, I was a defense attorney, and so I was representing the insurance company that was potentially on the hook. But it was a very interesting case for me, especially as a very young attorney, because normally you have a car accident, you have like one defendant, and that's the driver. And there were so many. I mean, the depositions, I would come down here, and there were like 8 attorneys because there are all of these different people. Like the national chapter was represented, the local chapter.
Yeah.
There were a couple of actual members of the fraternity. The people had like purchased the alcohol. I think the university was on the hook. I mean, it was like,
Massive.
it was a real learning experience for me. And I just remember at the time, and the rules have changed so much. I mean, so this would have been back in the late 80s. And all of the laws and the rules within the university had become much stricter, probably as a result of some of these horrible, horrible incidents. But it was really interesting to kind of look at all of the different angles of liability and kind of flesh out and again, 100% of responsibility gets divided up among the different parties.
Yeah.
So who's more at fault, who's less at fault. And I think that some of those cases really made universities put stronger rules and restrictions into place. And these, they vary across the country. There are some universities that have completely different and don't even talk about alcohol. There are some that have really specific details about what is and isn't allowed as far what borders onto abuse and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, I know the rules have changed a ton, but because I mean, even ASU, where there's a lot of fraternities, I mean, technically in their bylaws, there's no hazing. Like you're not allowed to do anything like that. Pledging overall, even if it's just a short period where you have to clean houses or just kind of do some of the cleaning or whatever it is after parties, that you're not allowed to do that at all.
Wow.
But everyone does. And it's just something that like you kind of know happens, but you got to do it behind closed doors. And then when things go bad, then they go really, really bad because ASU, they don't care.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, well, look, it's in our bylaws. You're not allowed to do this in the chapters. Well, like you said, they have representatives and they'll have lawyers for the chapter, for the individual himself. And it is something where it's like, who's responsible here? Is a person that was responsible, the BDD, the pledge master, maybe it was someone else that did something, but, he knew about it at the school, the chapter.
Well, I think that there is responsibility on multiple parties in those situations for sure. Well, I'm glad that you as BDD never got into trouble. Thank goodness.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was something we were definitely very aware of, the president and even if we would have kind of meetings with nationals once a semester and they would explain, what would happen and make sure we're not doing anything. And we had to, like I said, keep everything behind closed doors and,
behind closed doors, but I mean, you're talking like cleaning, and people aren't cleaning themselves to death or anything like that.
No, I mean, but there's
but you're not doing, you weren't doing the alcohol things.
No, there wasn't alcohol, but I mean, there was workout nights. Like workout nights was just like what happened. Like when I was a pledge, every week, usually several times a week, you just go to the house and you get there at 10. You'd like just wall sits, runs, push-ups, sit-ups, like little trivia questionnaire things. Just until 3 or 4. There's one night we did it till the sun came up. That was a tough one.
And then you go to school, you go to classes the next day.
Yeah, I mean, you go to classes, and that's something that you learn as well as time management. Because when you
time management. I mean, how much time do you have to manage if you're up all night?
Well, if you know that you can get called on any night to go show up at the house, that during the day you got to use every moment you got to get your work done, homework done, whatever it is.
You can't wait till the last minute because you may be doing push-ups. Okay. Interesting stuff. I mean, and the sad thing is just that, again, these cases still come up. I mean, here's another one, with everything that's happened, the rules, the laws that have changed, unfortunately, it's still going on. So.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I do want to make sure that we kind of get to everything.
Yes.
Last show we went a little long.
Yes, we're not going to do that. We're starting late. We're not going to do that. We don't want the cameras to die.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's hop on to an update on a case then. If we have extra time, we can always come back. Just a quick update, and that involves the earplug, the 3M earplug cases. Those are the earplugs that were provided by 3M to the military. They were defective, and a lot of people suffered hearing loss as a result. Those cases have been going on for multiple years now. The thing that's in the news right now is that 3M actually tried to file bankruptcy. It sounded like it was going to be similar to the J&J situation, but it was a little bit different in the sense that they didn't create an entire separate subsidiary and try to make that go bankrupt. But what they said is because there were several multi-million-dollar verdicts, and they said, whoa, we've got all these verdicts against us, so we want to file bankruptcy to protect ourselves. Well, the judge said, look, you're not in financial distress. Yes, there are these verdicts against you, but you're also appealing them. Nobody's collected money from you yet. Potentially, you're looking at a global settlement that you're going to control and figure out the dollar numbers and that sort of thing. And they just said, no, maybe at some point, if you keep getting multi-million-dollar verdicts after one after the other, and you're on the hook for them, maybe you're going to be in a position where you need to file bankruptcy down the road. But no, you can't do it now. You can't do this preemptively.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting. I mean, these are cases that we've been involved in with the 3M earplugs, and it feels like these companies are kind of, oh, well, they're trying this, they're trying that, and another one of these ways they're trying to preemptively get out of this. And luckily, the judges are saying, no, not having any of that, not okay.
That's good, because I mean, as soon as they let that happen, then it becomes a standard.
Floodgates, right? I mean, everybody's going to try and do that, and of course they are. I mean, if there's a way to get out.
Yeah, I didn't even know that you could deny bankruptcy. Like if someone thought that they really needed it, and these companies thought they were, the judge can just say, no, sorry, you don't get to.
Yeah, well, I mean, even in personal bankruptcies, I mean, you have to fill out all kinds of paperwork, and you have to. I mean, I don't handle bankruptcy cases, so I don't know a lot about it, but I do know at least one person who tried to file bankruptcy a ways back. We won't mention his name, but but you have to fill. I mean, you have to list like how many pairs of shoes you have. I mean, they are not. Even on a personal level, you can't just do it to avoid your debts. No, I mean, you have to be in financial dire straits to be allowed to do that. So
yeah, I mean that's kind of impressive that they were trying to file it before they even paid a single dollar out. They're getting cold. They're like, holy shit, this could be bad. Let's just file bankruptcy. And so if they allowed that, then they wouldn't owe any of the money to.
Oh no. They still would. I mean, so in the bankruptcy, then what would happen is that they would go through the bankruptcy process to distribute the assets, and so it would. I mean, they potentially. It's just basically a reorganization is what they wanted to do, and it would in theory protect them and limit the. It would also stop the lawsuits. I mean, once the bankruptcy is filed, everything is stayed. Any pending litigation is stayed, and so then they could go through and look at resolving those claims through that system instead. And they were saying that this would be a better way to deal with it. And the judge was like, no. And plus, I don't want that on my plate, I mean, maybe not his personal plate, but on the bankruptcy courts.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty massive, especially a large company like that filing for bankruptcy. There has to be so many assets to go through. And so many hoops.
So interesting effort, but it didn't fly. Ha, boo-hoo.
Thank God. I know. It's a matter of time until they think of some other way to try to preemptively get out of these lawsuits or slow them down at the very least.
Yeah. So we will see about that. Mm-hmm. So on to cases that we actually are handling that we're involved in, and we are, there's a lot of cases. One we're talking about this week is the PFAS chemicals. And we talked a little bit about that at dinner but these are what they call the forever chemicals, the chemicals that are getting into groundwater, soil, food, and basically last for pretty much forever. Hence the name Forever Chemicals.
Yeah,
and that they can be extremely dangerous. And one of the big issues is that it's in most of the or a lot of the public water supplies, and various water companies, water districts, governmental subsidiaries that are providing water now are going to have to provide a new filtration, and it's a very complicated filtration system. It's not the same system that's used for, say, arsenic, TCE, those other types of chemicals, and it's going to be very, very expensive. There have been lawsuits going on for years against the companies that produce these chemicals. And what's really come to a head and has been in the news this past week, what was happening is that a couple of these companies, or three of the companies, had gotten together and were getting a settlement together for about $1.2 billion. And then 3M, which is, well, allegedly the biggest culprit, there was a trial coming up. And they, basically on the eve of trial, called the trial off and are working. They're working on a settlement, purportedly in the range of $10 billion.
Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you think about just these chemicals are everywhere. Most everybody has them in their blood, and they're very dangerous. I mean, they're carcinogens. And what's happening are the regulations are changing, and all of these water suppliers are going to have to use these new and very expensive filtration systems to drop the levels of these chemicals.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a huge project. But this is really like seriously breaking news. And so various water districts are getting involved, getting representation so that they can maximize their recovery. Again, if they're going to have to make these very expensive changes. Either they're going to pay out of pocket or they're going to be passing this on to the consumers. And really, that shouldn't happen. They should be able to get compensated by these companies that have just, contaminated the water. I mean, they've caused the problem that now the companies now the facilities have to clean up, and they shouldn't have to pay for that cleanup when it's multi-millions of dollars. That's a crazy thing.
And it's good that they aren't just throwing it on the consumer. I feel like that does kind of happen a lot with costs, is that you just kind of see your monthly go up, and
Well, and it may. I mean, it may. I mean, again, if the companies don't get involved in the settlement, potentially they may be passing it on.
Yeah.
And some places have higher levels of these chemicals than others, and are going to require a lot more work than others. So it's a very individual situation.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's several water suppliers, but it's a variety of different locations and areas. I'm assuming this is kind of just across the country, right?
Well, it's across the country. I mean, there are different chemicals that are going to be in higher concentrations in different areas. But one of the really fascinating things that I had learned about this is that they can know. I mean, these chemicals have these like DNA kind of prints. They know exactly what company is responsible for what if they find it in your blood, they can tell you it was 3M, it was DuPont. They know.
Yeah.
I mean, these are very, very specific and patented and very individual chemicals.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. I mean, who did it. And there may be, in certain situations, there may be, multiple chemicals that are in a water supply in a particular area, but then which two defendants are responsible and should be on the hook for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not only is it cool, it's kind of terrifying at the same time.
It is.
If they can look at, a blood sample of yours and see specific chemicals in there and know, wow, this only exists from this water plant.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of shocking.
Or this company's chemicals, that then is coming through a particular water plant. But I mean, it's not just. I mean, it's in the water, but then it gets into the soil. So then the animals, livestock, and then it's in the meat that you're eating. It's in the milk that you're drinking. I mean, these things are just everywhere. I mean, it's really kind of terrifying.
It snowballs.
Yes. And so finally, it's coming to the point where the government is saying, whoa, not cool. These are chemicals that are killing people, and we need to stop it. And how do we stop it? Well, we have to stop, the water suppliers. First of all, you guys have to clean it up. But now, for them, they need to go step back and say, all right, who caused the problem that we're cleaning up, and
Yeah.
hopefully collect from them. And that's one of the things that we're getting involved in, helping get those situations set up and make sure that any of the companies that are interested can maximize their recovery in the settlement.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a massive case, billions of dollars,
Yeah.
10 billion. I mean, that's just an unimaginable amount
Yeah,
of
probably
money.
total at least 12 between the couple of settlements.
And for these filtration systems, I'm assuming they're going to be expensive to make for them to create.
Multi-millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a whole new system. It's not, the systems that have been used for other chemicals in the past aren't working for these.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that's kind of why they waited so long, and they kind of need the slap on the wrist now to get moving on it. But at the same time, I think they would probably prefer to pay a few million to recreate it than 12 billion.
Yeah, yeah. So, so a lot of the cases are with the various water districts, but individuals also can bring claims against these companies. And there are some very specific injuries that there's probably a lot of things that are being caused by this, but the science has caught up to a few of them and can really link it up. And the conditions right now that we're accepting personal injury specific individual cases on involve testicular cancer, kidney cancer, liver cancer, prostate cancer, and ulcerative colitis. And on these, if you have this condition, again, you can have a blood test that can determine if these chemicals are in your system and could have contributed to this condition. Obviously, people can get these cancers and these conditions that aren't related to these chemicals, but you can find out if it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it involves a blood test, but this may have caused or contributed. And if that's the case, if you're interested in getting more information, certainly reach out to us, and we'd be glad to help you out with that.
Yeah, I mean, that is a terrifying list of conditions that it can result in. Is this settlement going to go towards individuals that were affected, or is it going towards the companies that have to kind of clean it up afterwards in their local areas? How is this money actually getting distributed? And I guess, yeah.
Well, I don't know for sure yet, and that's because these things haven't been finalized, but the trial has been called off, and they've said, whoa, stop, let's not litigate this. We're going to get this settlement put together. So we don't know for sure, but we do know that both individuals and the water districts, water companies they have claims. And so they certainly, exactly how that's going to work out in these settlements is left to be seen as it gets finalized. But both types of plaintiffs certainly do have claims and will be able to pursue those claims.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, that they canceled it on the eve. It makes me think that maybe it's just so much worse. They didn't want people like digging around and it kind of going on public record about all these chemicals, just how contaminated the water is. And it reminds me of Flint, and that entire thing went down where they were getting brown water coming out, which is crazy, too, is it's still toxic.
Yeah.
But no one talks about it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of overlooked now.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there was somebody speaking on that at a conference not too long ago, but I'm not sure what the exact status is on that. I should check into it just because I am curious kind of in this context.
For these cases, where are there, are there areas that are like extra toxic that have gone much worse than other ones? And maybe if you live in those areas, you should kind of be keeping an eye out.
Well, so it really depends on the specific, water district and all of them. I think it's if there's is it over 1 million people? I can't recall the exact number now, but depending on the size of the facility that they have to do this testing, and so that information is available. I mean, I can look up and find out, what the levels are of these chemicals, at various places. But literally, I mean, it's going to vary all across the country.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and I use bottled water. We even feed the dogs bottled water. I always, Peter, I always catch him like trying to give the dogs water out of the sink. I'm like, damn it, stop it.
Very bougie dogs.
Well, I don't want my dogs getting cancer from
That's fair.
from tap water, So anyway, but it's expensive. I mean, that's another expense, and a lot of people, can't add that expense onto their monthly overhead, and so there are a lot of people, a lot of kids, are getting exposed through the water. I mean, that's the biggest way of being exposed. I mean, there are other ways as well. Like we said, I mean, it's in, our fruits and vegetables, our whole food supply,
Yeah.
The animals. I mean, the whole 9 yards.
And Arizona tap water is especially bad. I mean, it
Well,
was.
it's not brown.
It's not brown. Okay, well that's just extreme. But I know it's pretty bad comparatively compared to the country. I remember the first time I went to New York and everyone was just drinking water straight out of the tap, and it was just normal. I was like, it's insane. But then I tried it, and I was like, I can actually taste a difference between Arizona tap water and New York tap water.
So down in Sonoyta, where we are halftime, we have our own well, and it's just interesting there too because I mean the water tastes completely different than
Yeah.
what it does here.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely noticeable, which is kind of another thing to be a little scary. Like
I like my bottled water. I know it's kind of sounds ridiculous, but
I mean, I'm with you
I
on
drink
that.
a lot of water. I have to drink a lot. When we're in the desert, for God's sakes, we got to drink a lot of water. So it's better to be safe than sorry. And
I'm a big gallon fan. I like buying those gallons. Well, it's because water bottles are too tiny, especially if you get the baby ones, those little baby ones.
who gets baby ones except if you're like in an office?
Yeah, but it's absurd. You can slam one of those in one sip. Even normal water bottles, you can slam it in like two gulps.
It's impressive. It must be all that college drinking.
Good practice. But the gallons, you always got to buy. You got plenty of supply with you, and you don't have to worry about running out in the middle of the day.
But then it gets hot. See, I like my water bottles. I like this guy.
Yeah.
Because I put lots of ice in there, and I put a little pink salt for extra hydration purposes, and then it matches also. Oh, it matches my pink water bottle, and it matches my pink blouse today.
Wow,
And my
yeah.
pink lips. I'm very pink today. Maybe it's for the Barbie movie because that is coming out.
Is it? I haven't heard anything about that.
I'm shocked.
I know you're a big Barbie fan, though.
Yeah. So.
I know we've gotten a few questions as well, but something that you told me earlier this week, and we've mentioned on the podcast, is that we've been looking and figuring out the scholarship situation.
Yes, we have a scholarship winner, which we actually have already announced on social media. Her name is Mackenzie Cosette, and she is at the University of Connecticut. Very, very impressive resume, and she wrote an excellent essay. And it was really hard, actually, because I personally read
Yeah.
I went through every single resume, and I mean, I'm kind of shocked that we had like hundreds of people apply.
Yeah, you showed me the stack that you had to go through.
That was a partial stack that I was looking through that day. I mean,
And I was like, I don't know how you do it. That's a lot of reading of different essays and application. I mean, everything.
well, it was, but I mean, I figure if somebody takes the time, and Danny and I were talking about this. I mean, sometimes you're like, oh, what's the world coming to, and what are kids doing to? And I was like, wow, this is really amazing that so many people really made this effort. I mean, they provided their resume, they provided an essay, transcripts, the whole 9 yards. I mean, I was very impressed. And it was really, really hard. It was really hard. And there were so many just great and well-qualified students out there. So, I have to, hopefully we'll do this again. But I was able to speak with Mackenzie also, just got that check out. Actually, it is in the mail. So, but she was very impressive. As I said, she's at University of Connecticut. Expected to graduate in May of 2025 with a major in political science and law and society. Anyway, I'm very excited to kind of see where she goes, and kind of relieved that that we finally made the decision. It was a lot of pressure.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've been going through those applications for a few weeks now. I'm sure there was a lot of impressive individuals as well.
There really was.
What made Mackenzie stand out?
Well, I mean, her resume is very, very impressive. I really liked her essay, and I just really liked some of the activities that she was involved in. It was our Women's Equality Scholarship, and so she was involved in empowering women in law. Was one of them. It kind of jumped out to me. She's been on the dean's list. Has an interest in the law. Obviously, she's honors program, just a bunch of stuff, and just very. When I spoke with her, she was just very, very sweet, very interesting, very committed, and I'm just kind of excited to be able to help a little bit.
Yeah.
and inspire people who are interested in women's equality.
No, I think that's a great topic, and I think anything helps. When you're going through
Well,
college.
that's true too. I mean, I know. I mean, I had scholarships and student loans and all kinds of things. It takes a lot, and I mean, my gosh, it's just so expensive these days. It's getting crazier and crazier all the time.
Yeah, and the value of a degree is going down.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, I think it's good to have. Don't get me wrong.
You almost have to. I mean, at this point, I mean, it's
But
kind
that's
of
the
almost
thing.
a bare minimum sometimes.
That's the thing, though. Is like it used to be. You get a college education, you're gonna find a good job somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, when you come out of college, you're probably gonna find something slightly above minimum wage, depending on what area you're in. There's a lot of specifics. I know finance. A lot of my finance friends, they're pretty quick to find a job. Same with accounting and those areas.
Oh, maybe you're right. I mean, actually, it probably does make sense that the value has gone down. I mean, it is different.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but the price keeps going up.
Value down, price up. That's not
unfortunate.
Yeah. So, questions, and again, we're going to probably wrap up before too long. We don't want to go over again, but we've had a few questions. But the biggest thing that has been coming up and the calls that we have been receiving recently have to do with those CPAP machines. And I know it's not just the podcast, but I guess there must be other things going on out there, other places that people are hearing about this and getting concerned again. But we have been getting a lot of calls just specifically asking how, what's this process? What do I do? How do I find out if my machine has been recalled, and what are the steps to be getting this replaced? But it is Philips. You go through the Philips company to check basically whether your machine is one of the ones that have been recalled, and then to get that process started if you have not yet to get a replacement or repair on the machine. So it's apparently still a big issue. I mean, this has been going on since 2021, and a lot of people are still just hearing about it, not familiar with it, and not getting in line to get their
I was gonna say they're getting in line because it's good to start.
They're way behind. They're way behind.
Yeah, the earlier, I mean, you're just not going to be able to get a machine right away, and that's why it's important to kind of get your name in there because as they begin to catch up, hopefully they eventually do catch up to the demand of replacing these machines. But it's a majority of CPAP machines, right?
Oh, most of them.
Most of them.
Yeah. I mean, most of them, and there's just millions and millions. And again, you want to be able to get it replaced as soon as possible because most of these conditions are conditions that the repetitive exposure to these chemicals and and to this broken down foam. I mean, the cancers, these sorts of things. I mean, they don't occur overnight, but the more that you're exposed, the longer period, the more likely that you are to come down with one of these diseases that are pretty serious and pretty scary.
Yeah, I keep thinking about something you mentioned when we first discussed it. Is some individuals actually have black little pieces of foam in their lungs.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, that is just insane that it's not even like quickly deteriorating. It's going into your lungs and it's just hanging out there.
Well, it's just breaking down, and then once it's in your lung, it's going to be stuck there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, unless you're having surgery and removing lobes and things like that, then, yeah. I know, it's very scary. I mean, I'm very happy that I don't need the CPAP.
Yeah, well, and it's good that people are asking questions and reaching out because, I mean, it's something that it seems like a majority, like you said, a majority of these CPAP machines are experiencing. And if you have sleep apnea and you're on a machine, more than likely, it's better for you to check it out and look into it. And, we're over here to spread the good word and make sure that everyone's aware of it.
Absolutely. And like I said, Danny's been taking a lot of calls, and she's very sweet. Just, here's how to do it. And she's been a lot of older people, and she just walks them through step by step and exactly what they can do. Get onto the website. Here's what you do here. And again, we're happy to help with anything like that. And it may not be that you may not have a case at this point. I mean, hopefully you haven't contracted any of these diseases. But again, you want to be in a position to stop using that machine. that particular one, start using another one, hopefully. Although some people can wean themselves off with different lifestyle changes, but check with your doctor about that. Don't stop without talking to a medical professional. We are not medical professionals.
No, we are not.
I mean, I might be married to one, but I'm not one myself. and
Better safe than sorry. Always check in with your doctor. But hopefully, I mean, like you said, we don't really talk about it anywhere else other than on the podcast. So it's seeming like a lot of people that are hearing about this is from our platform.
I don't know. I hope so.
Hopefully.
But hey, people, tell us you're there. Send us a message. Say hello. Send us a question.
Yeah.
Or just give us 5 stars. I mean, that works too.
Yeah, I mean, we love questions as well. Getting into, the other questions, because I always kind of keep an eye out on YouTube, on TikTok, because we get a variety. Sometimes, we get a lot of them aren't questions. Usually they're just kind of comments or reactions to.
Sometimes nasty comments or insults, but
Yeah.
that's okay. There's always going to be haters.
Yeah, you got to expect that, honestly.
I
It's
know.
what comes along with being on the internet.
I think there was somebody who said that I had been dropped on my head or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
I don't think I was.
No, I think the topics that we go over sometimes, they might be some sore areas for some people. So.
Is that a euphemism?
No, I just think there might be like,
Okay.
I don't know.
I thought you were referring to the vacuum cleaner cases in sore area.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. What other questions have we been getting though?
Well, the CPAP one is the biggest one. I mean, we did have a lot of people commenting about the vacuum cleaner case and arguing that was not the case. And actually, I did respond to some on some of the posts, just with some of these PubMed articles, because these articles about this situation. I mean, it's not like it's not just some schlunky New York Post or something like that. I mean, these are published medical journals,
Peer reviewed.
Yeah. I tell you. I mean, it's unfortunate that this is such a common situation that these doctors have to write articles about.
Well, when you first
to
told
share
me
the information with other doctors who are going to see this.
Yeah, I mean, when you first told me, I thought that was just a myth. Like, I didn't really think that was something that was a common issue that people were experiencing. But when you mentioned, there are very official journals, peer-reviewed journals about it. I mean, that's not something you can just come up with and make up. Like,
no, and you're not going to write an article unless that's a pretty big problem.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to write an article because one guy was stupid and put his penis into a vacuum cleaner. That is not going to be, a medical journal article. No, there's going to be multiple people with this similar injury that then you have to share the treatment and basically what to do. Yeah.
Well, and I know it can be unbelievable at times. I mean, when we went over the Tylenol as well, one of our early episodes, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we talk about is shocking. Like,
right.
It almost unbelievable that companies are doing this or individuals are doing these things.
Yeah.
But, everything that we talk about, there's a reason behind it. We do the research. We know that it is something that's a real problem. I mean, we're not here putting out fake news. We
I know you're paranoid about fake news. We're not going to be guilty of that.
No, not at all. I know there's plenty of fake news.
They don't need anybody else. They don't need a podcast.
I refuse to add to the problem.
Okay, we will not. Well, anyway, but feel free, if you're skeptical about something, I have no problem with you reaching out. We're happy to provide the support for it. I mean, quite frankly, you can just Google that one and you'll find those articles. But, again, we're happy to provide support for any of the information that we provide here on Prioritizing Profits.
Yeah, we always recommend, if you're interested and want to do that extra research, we want to make sure you got the resources for it.
Yes, absolutely. You want to read some of those medical articles or go for it. Okay, so next week we're going to talk about the Bair Hugger forced air warming blanket, which results in deep joint infections. And this is a litigation that's been going on for a really long time, but it is a current one. Cases are still being signed up and something that we've been involved in for many, many years. So we're going to hit on that as far as our main topic next week. And of course, all kinds of interesting things in the news, some things we didn't have a chance to get to this week. And
Yeah.
Hopefully something that will be crazy and interesting and make you skeptical and ask questions about.
Yeah, and with the bear hugger case especially, I really think that it's an interesting one. How they kind of realized that it was a problem and the science behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was shocked that was something you can kind of piece together and connect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll get into the details on that next week and see if there are skeptical people out there. We're happy to provide studies if there are.
Yeah.
We aim to serve and educate.
It's our mission. I think we're going to close out here. I think it's a good stopping point. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and hanging out with us on Prioritizing Profits, Dangerous Drug and Product Cases. We'll be back next week.
We will.
Wednesday
Same
as
place,
usual.
Same time.
Yeah.
Hopefully a little earlier, actually. Hopefully I will charge the cameras and we'll start earlier.
Fingers crossed. But, whatever platform you're seeing us on, throw us a like, subscribe, follow, on Facebook, throw a comment, whatever it is, throw out a question. We always love answering questions. And even if it's something that you're just shocked by, or you want to hear more about, hey, I'll tell more fraternity stories. I
bet you will.
I love talking about them.
You just love talking.
That's true. You're not wrong.
All right.
But yeah, with that being said, I think we're going to close out. Thank you, everyone, again.
Thanks a lot. See you next week.
Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
dangerous drug and product cases.